to the operational cost of the supervisory union. I went back over the last 4 audits and reviewed how much they contributed as a percentage of the annual revenues from the districts, and came up with a percentage that seemed fair. And so what I'm suggesting that we do is we return $11,963.95 to Pittsfield and $1,22,617.05 to the Mountain View School District.
Okay, great. We'll need a motion to make that happen. Could I get a board member to say so moved?
So moved.
I think I didn't catch it. Is there a second?
Sure.
Randy, did you catch the mover and the second there?
I did.
Okay. All in favor of returning these amounts to the district and to Pittsfield, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the ayes have it. Motion carries. All right. For the next item on the agenda, we have public comment. John Williams has agreed to help. He's been our timer the last couple of board meetings where we've had a large amount of attendance. I can't see who's in the room. So if John, you could help me identify those with their hands up. We'll start in the room this evening, and then we'll move to anybody. Actually, maybe we'll mix it up depending on how much interest there is in public comment this evening. Are those in attendance who would like to make public comment?
Yes. So when you do speak, please stand. If you could say your name and what town you reside in.
Okay, I am Ann Lassard. This is my 27th year of teaching in the middle school here as a humanities teacher. Several of us are going to read a letter that we have placed around the room on the table for you guys as well. I live in Barnard, and I have 2 adult children who graduated from the middle school, high school. To the board of the Mountain View School District. As you make difficult decisions about our budget and the future of education in our district, we, members of the Woodstock Union Middle School faculty, wanted to share a perspective that we feel you may not have heard. The first is that budget cuts and staff reductions are not a new phenomenon for us. While the size and scope of this year's budget's challenges have drawn much attention, the reality is that the Woodstock Union School, high school, middle school has been adjusting its staffing levels in response to decreasing enrollment for the better part of a decade. During that time, we have lost numerous teaching and administrative positions. The middle school portion of our building has been particularly hit hard by these reductions in staff. Less than a decade ago, we had a middle school principal, a middle school administrative assistant, and a middle school dean of students, all housed within a distinct middle school office. More recently, 2 years ago, our administration cut a full-time health and physical education position, which accounted for 10% of our district's dedicated middle school staff.
My name is Ryan Becker. I'm a Woodstock resident. I have a son who is a 6th grader at the Prosper Valley School, and this is my 21st year teaching middle school science. And I'd like to pick up where Ann left off. These reductions have made it very challenging to meet middle school students' unique social, emotional, and intellectual needs. Our students are not simply small high school students. In their 7th grade year, they have far more in common with their 6th grade peers than they do the 9th graders in our building, much less juniors and seniors. In the face of budget cuts, we've had to fight on a near yearly basis to maintain the structures and staffing needed to give our students the developmentally appropriate education they deserve, all the while mustering our creativity to find low and no cost ways to improve our students' experience. 2 years ago, for example, teachers led an initiative to bring all middle school core classes into a single hallway, an effort that cost the district no money, but nevertheless made a notable difference in students' sense of safety and community. We have also stepped in to fill elective positions that we have lost. This has required teachers of this age group to take on an increasing load of responsibilities, many of which fall outside of the teaching positions for which we were hired. This year, for example, we have science teachers leading art classes, math teachers offering computer coding classes, and social studies teachers taking on culinary arts and physical education. We're working harder than we ever have, all the while partnering with the Association for Middle Level Education, known as AMLE, so that we can do that work better. Last year, we began work with AMLE we hope will lead to recognition as a national school of distinction, an honor that recognizes middle schools who've completed an in-depth self-assessment, which we have done, and who demonstrate a commitment to implementing middle-level best practices.
My name is Matt McCormick. Excuse me, I'm a resident of Plymouth. This is my 11th year teaching social studies here in the building, and I'm also now teaching physical education. I have a son in 3rd grade at West and a kindergartner there as well. And I want to add is that these new responsibilities have middle school staff feeling stretched beyond our capacity. We know that no one has spoken explicitly about cutting middle school positions, but we know that many in our community cannot afford another large increase in their tax bill. And given the board's action in December, we are concerned that our building may be targeted for reductions. We want you to know that any cuts to staffing in our building will almost certainly require middle school specialists in English, science, math, and social studies to also teach high school classes. And this will result in the dismantling of the school within a school model we worked so hard to preserve, and again, that our students deserve.
I am Laurie Smith, social emotional learning specialist, primarily in the middle school. This is my 4th year here, and I am a relatively new resident of Bridgewater. There are already too many aspects of our students' day not designed with their needs in mind. Our double cascading schedule is a prime example. Even now, nearly halfway through the school year, there are a significant number of students who need to check in with teachers several times a day to know what class they have next. The executive functioning area of their brain simply has not developed enough to keep track of the moving target that is their schedule. For this and many other reasons, an increasing portion of our students find the transition to middle school so overwhelming that they are dysregulated for much of their school experience. They need daily social emotional support, help making connections to their peers, and strong relationships with their teachers. Right now, we are able to work to meet these students' individual needs, to set small, meaningful goals with them that over time help them find their place in our learning community. What will happen to these students, the district's most vulnerable students, if because of a need to teach high school classes, we are no longer available to help them? How will their learning suffer if they're forced into classes that are unmanageable in size? How will their school day feel if they have fewer opportunities for choice-based clubs, electives, and advisory activities?
My name is Melissa Fellows, and I live in Plymouth, Vermont. And I have been teaching science in the middle school for 19 years now. And my son is a current 8th grade student in our middle school. And I'd like to end with the following. In December, you heard from educators, students, and parents who passionately expressed their concerns about next year's budgets. We applaud these speakers for taking the time and making the effort to make their voices heard. We also think it's important to keep in mind that these voices represent a small portion of the stakeholders in our district. We appreciate the board's desire to follow the community's wishes. However, not all in our community are able to attend board meetings, nor will vital functions of a school draw crowds or elicit passion. Should the middle school lose dedicated teachers, for example, finding adequate supervisors to ensure a safe environment for lunch on a daily basis for this age group will be very challenging. The negative impact of such a change will be real and significant. Yet it's hard to imagine rallying community support around lunch duty. We hope that as you enter your final budget deliberations, you will keep in mind that many unpublicized but essential functions of a school that teachers fulfill outside of their classroom. We know that our current budget situation is not your fault, and we do not envy the job that you do have to do. Nevertheless, it seems to us that we are in this position because officials in Montpelier have abrogated their responsibility to make hard, unpopular decisions that are ultimately in the best interest of our state's students and schools. You now face a similar decision, and we hope that it is made based on the needs of all of our district's students.
Thank you.
Are there others in the room this evening who'd like to make public comment?
Yes.
I'll let you field it, John.
Hello, my name is Vanessa Kramer, and I'm a science teacher. I've worked here since 2013. I'm also the science department chair.
I'm Heather Veneta. I've been here for 21 years and I'm a math department chair as well.
We just want to make sure that you have the information about the math and science departments. We emailed a letter before the holiday break, and there are copies at your table as well. There are 2 new data sets on it. One is the percentage of students who are doubling in math and science, and the other new data set is students who are leaving the high school and planning to major in math and science as well.
So we just wanted to highlight the fact that there are more students that are enrolled in math and science than there are a number of students, because so many of our students double up in both math and science. And also, we did a history of students who go on from high school to some sort of math or science degree. And more than 25% of our students are leaving here to go to college for some sort of math or science degree. And we feel like taking a position of a half math and half science is going to be really detrimental to not only just our students, but when they go off to go to higher education as well.
A VSAC survey that surveyed students when they graduated last year said that over 90% are planning to get some kind of post-secondary education, maybe certificates or apprenticeships or bachelor's degrees or master's degrees or beyond. So having a robust math and science program really helps with that post-secondary education.
And then we were just wondering if there were any questions that you had about our letter or the data that we presented at any time. We're happy to field any questions.
And thank you for being available to share information with you, email information to you, and for listening. We appreciate it.
Thank you both. This will be a part of the discussion in the budget workshop this evening.
Are there any others that would like to speak during public comment? Now, there will be a chance at the end of the meeting as well.
If anyone online would like to make public comment, please raise your hand and that'll kind of put you to the front page so we'll be able to see you.
I do not live in this district. My name is Jay Hooper. I live in the town of Randolph. I've served 2 terms on the House Education Committee. I'm in my 5th term in the legislature. The truest statement said so far was the last one in your letter. The legislature is to blame for this terrible dynamic that you all are having to deal with every budget season. So I'm not here to make any certain statements aside from please share with me those 2 letters and anything else you think would be useful to me as I endeavor to basically go tell my colleagues that the most important thing for all parties involved, and that is all Vermonters, is to solve this crisis sooner than any other legislative matter as we put it off for decades. And it's terrible for children. It's the youth who are suffering for our inability as your representatives to give you directives that are reasonable, have continuity of strategy, and fair, frankly, equitable. So thank you for listening to me, Jay Hooper, and hopefully you'll give me a copy of that letter and another one.
Thank you.
Ben,
Other?
would you mind if I just interject with a thank you to Jay for his comments?
All good.
Well, I suppose I already have, so thank you, Jay. Sorry, Ben.
You're good.
I didn't take my hat off. That was disrespectful.
We'll let it slide this time. But others for public comment?
Yes.
So Brian Smith, Woodstock, we have a toddler who's currently on the wait list for the preschool program. Just want to raise awareness around that and how we have a pretty wide spectrum of ages with seemingly arbitrary acceptance criteria. And when I'm hearing the others speak, we talk about preparedness for further education and continuity of education. And what I'm seeing in the decision-making process is that we're accepting younger students over older students based on seemingly arbitrary criteria as a result, we're setting up some of these students for less success in the future as they matriculate into the more formal education system in the elementary school. So want to bring that up, just raise awareness and see if there's opportunity to review the acceptance criteria so we can make it more equitable for all the children, particularly the children who are more advanced in their ages.
Thank you.
Can I add as well? This is Mila Korobkova.
Go ahead, Mila.
Thank you, Brian, for speaking. I'm in Brian's boat, and I apologize I'm not on video. I'm putting a 6-month-old to sleep, but my 3 years old and 4-month-old child is outside. He will turn 4 on September 3rd, and he's on the wait list. So he, if accepted, would luckily be probably among the oldest, but I, similar to Brian, have heard of many kids turning 3 in the summer who have received a space, and we feel similarly that my child, who will be almost 4, would be at risk of like literally a full year's worth of falling sort of behind in the curriculum and any exposure and any preparation that he would otherwise receive at Woodstock Elementary School because of, you know, this potential budget issue and the cuts and whatnot. So just adding my voice to the mix. Sorry I can't be on video, but appreciate everybody's hard work.
Thank you, Mila. Are you in Woodstock?
I'm Pomfret, but I default to Woodstock as primary.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
If I could chime in, Kelly Gleason, a resident of Bridgewater.
Kelly, can you hang on? I got
Yes.
prefer to do it that way. Crystal, do you want to speak?
Yeah, we're actually probably going to say around the same thing. So I have a 3-year-old that's also on the wait list for Killington. And I'm also curious to know if maybe Barnard's pre-K program is not going to happen, because we were told that we were going to hear by the end of the week on December 16th about our second choice, Barnard, which is where I live. And I have yet to hear anything about that.
All right, thank you, Crystal. We've pre-K is going to be part of our budget discussions. I can tell you that there are decisions that need to be made by the board that will impact the notification that you receive. Others want to put their hand up? I think, who did I cut off? Kelly a moment ago?
Yeah, and Crystal covered it. So I also have a current 3-year-old who is turning 4 at the very beginning of the school year, who has been waitlisted at both Woodstock and Killington. So we're in Bridgewater, so sending to either. And there are kids in our same daycare who are just turning 3 in the summer who have been accepted. And we've also heard that there are families who lied about their address that are actually in Rutland County, but used a storefront address for Killington and were accepted over sending district students.
Thank you, Kelly.
Thank you.
Others for public comment? Okay, hearing, all right, anybody else in the room? Sorry, before I move on.
Nobody else in the room, Ben.
Okay, great. Let's move on to the superintendent's report. Sherry?
Yes, I would say my report is in the agenda, and I'll defer my reading so that we can move forward with the other board tonight.
Great. Thank you, Sherry. Let's move on to our time scheduled appointments. The first is for accepting resignations, and I'm just getting down to that. Retirements and resignations. Lisa Kaya at the Reading Elementary School, our visual arts teacher, has provided her notice of retirement. We have can't see who's in attendance. We typically have someone say nice things about our faculty members who are leaving. Is anyone in attendance prepared to do that?
There are a number of people who would like to speak.
Okay, wonderful. You know, John, I'm going to tap you to moderate anybody in the room for the rest of the meeting who would like to speak. Could you maybe field these for me?
Happy to.
Thanks, John.
Great. So he said nice things, so I'll cross some things off. Hear that. as I read, because I did enlist a little help, because there are people in the school that know Lisa longer than I have, and I really want their perspective. She's a tightly woven thread of the res school history. She's been an active member of our education community as a parent, a volunteer in the PTO, and then also 2 decades as an art teacher. She contributed to a rich art program that includes a collaboration with the Hall Art Foundation, has been instrumental in securing grants, not only to bring in artists and residents, but also to help with the construction of the outdoor classroom. She brings us weekly art challenges, opens our eyes to world-renowned art, and keeps the school connected to the greater Reading community through her relationships and multifaceted roles within the town. She brings her love of nature, exploration, sense of adventure, willingness to experiment in diverse world experiences. She coordinated multiple after-school programs previously, the art club and a cross-country running club. She supports res students in the educational team in all ventures, enriching ideas, and is an excellent companion on field trips. Personally, I don't know if anybody is a Ted Lasso fan, but last year she made me like biscuits, like in the box. And I won't forget that. She's an amazing teacher and above all, an exceptional person, and she'll be tremendously missed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Adam.
Yeah, I can speak as a board member from Reading, a neighbor of Lisa, a recipient of the Kaya generosity that we've had in the last 15 years of living in this town. 2 children that are graduates of Lisa's multiple layers of education and just general humanity. I don't think there's a better way to say it than she's just good people, period, right? And how could you not want someone like that teaching your kids, being your colleague, your neighbor, and a very important community member? So selfishly, she's still my neighbor, and I know she'll be very involved in the Reading community still. I did try and recruit her to be a board member, denied though.
And I just want to add, so you never want to be on the opposing side of Lisa. We at 47 had some really difficult conversations, and I never, ever want to be on the wrong side of Lisa. She is fierce and passionate and committed and just everything you'd want in an advocate and an educator. So I will deeply miss her. Know she'll be at Artistry and we'll see her around, but highly committed. Don't be on her other side.
Looks like Anna had your hand up. Yeah.
Yeah, everything that everyone has already said, in addition to the fact that absolutely beloved human being, what a remarkable way that she was able to intertwine community and school. It's so wonderful that our Adams and my children get to see her at school and also get to see her at the local community events. And we just love you, Lisa, and you are irreplaceable. Thank you.
Thanks, Anna. Looks like Carrie. Yeah, thanks, John. Still muted, Carrie. There you go.
I just want to say that Lisa is a very good friend of mine, and she has taught in so many arenas around our community, not only in the schools, but at Artistry. And she managed to instill a love of art in my grandchild. And I just will regret that she's leaving, but I thank her for all that she has done.
Thanks, Carrie. Others who would like to speak on Lisa's retirement? Okay, great. Thank you, Lisa. The next item is to discuss the withdrawal of funds from capital reserves. Jim, this is an item that's in the agenda. I guess, Jim, can I ask you to tee this one up as well?
I'm happy to talk about it. In October, the state of Vermont Department of Ed notified the district that we're scheduled for PCB testing next summer. What we are looking to do is be proactive, and we've been preparing for this for a couple of years, so we've done a lot of proactive stuff already. But the ductwork in this building and the ductwork in the Woodstock Elementary School have not been cleaned in anywhere from 6 to 10 years, depending on which building it is. And What we have done is gone out and got some quotes and would like to get this done before they come in and do the PCB testing. That way, whatever dust we are blowing around will be clean dust instead of PCB dust or old dust. This is not something we budgeted. And so we're asking that you withdraw funds from the capital reserve funds to pay for this. In the memo that's in the board package is the suggested motion to withdraw the funds, $38,650 from the West Building Maintenance Capital Reserve Fund and $52,850 from the Middle High School Building Maintenance Capital Reserve Fund. Both funds have adequate funds to cover this and leave money in them. I would ask Matt, if, as the chair of the B&G committee, you want to speak to it too?
Certainly. So this was presented to the committee. We fully support this initiative. It will result in better air quality in these buildings. And as we've all discussed in this forum over the last few years, and we've maybe seen in the news if you're following it, that it's really an unfunded mandate. If there's any PCBs found, there's no money to remediate it. And what happens is buildings are closed and students are having to find other places to be educated, which we really don't have in our community right now. And the testing is more strict in Vermont than any other state. So this is a pretty important thing that we prepare for this test.
Before we get into any further discussion, Matt, could I ask you to make the motion that Jim has teed up for us for these expenditure amounts?
Yes, so I'll make a motion to withdraw the funds from the capital reserve balance to conduct the WES and WUHSMS duct cleaning as proposed.
Great. Is there a second?
I'll make a second and open it for discussion.
Thanks, Anna. You want to speak to it?
Yeah, so it sounds like an absolutely appropriate thing to do and maybe something that needs to be put on a schedule. I hate to hear that our ducts are not getting cleaned every decade. That's kind of crazy. And it feels a little retroactive that we're going to do it just to pass this test. And I hope that moving forward, we can do a more regular, frequent job of providing clean air for our students. Thank you.
Thanks,
Anna. And I added to the capital improvements list of scheduled events. So it will now become part of a routine.
Awesome. I appreciate that.
That looked good.
Other discussion?
Josh.
So as the way that works in building maintenance, that's why I was just going to ask this question. What are filters being changed every 3 months as required by the state? I mean, there's a lot of things that go into it that are preventative for this.
Filters during COVID were changed much more frequently than they are now or before, but they're changed every 90 days or whatever the requirement.
The requirement is every 90 days.
And we do have a good maintenance schedule for that.
Okay.
We're figuring out what needs to be maintained still and starting to build a better periodic maintenance schedule because there are some things that were lacking. But the filters are definitely
they are changed quarterly, filters. Reading Elementary, we just did a new HVAC system down there, so the ductwork there is good. When we redid Prosper Valley, the ductwork was cleaned there as well. So the only outlier would be Barnard Academy, which has a very short length of ductwork, but these two larger schools, it had been several years before they've been done.
All right. Thank you, Josh, Jim, and Joe. Other discussion? Okay, let's take it to a motion. All in favor of approving expenditure of these amounts from capital reserves, please say aye.
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 All opposed? Hearing none, the ayes have it. The motion carries. Okay, great. All right, the next item on the agenda is our budget workshop. I'm going to share my screen. I've got some updates after the last couple of board meetings where we were, I think we were left with a lot of questions. We being Jim, Carrie, Sherry, and I had additional discussions during the holiday break, and were able to track down some of the items that the board had expressed some interest in and then provide some additional perspective. So I will share my screen and pull up an update of, this is let's see, of our budget presentation. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. This is a hopeful time up here, our final budget session. But let's see what we can do. I guess before I kick this off, just to not bury the lead, I'm going to make a recommendation as the finance chair of a particular budget number and a particular items adjustments from our to the FY26 budget kind of coming out of our last meeting. The purpose of this presentation is really to kind of tee up that recommendation. But let's go ahead and go through it. This is just an update. I'm going to skip a bunch of these slides because they're from our initial kind of kickoff of the budget discussion. These first two bullets on this slide are kind of repeats of what you've seen before, and that is last year, you may recall, the tax commissioner had announced this, the sky is falling, essentially 18.5% was the average. Our district saw much higher tax rate increases in each town than that. This year, that projected number at this stage of the game is 5.9%, so far better. And then this, the second one is just a reminder that, we know that kind of the start of the budgeting exercise this year in the summer was when the legislature brought back this excess spend threshold, and the mandate from the finance committee and to the administration was to avoid that penalty phase. After identifying $2.5 million worth of cuts and strategies to avoid that penalty phase, new numbers came out from the state, both in terms of our ADM numbers, that's our membership, our enrollment, and our adjustments to the excess spend threshold that would have required us to cut an additional $400,000 or $500,000, and that the administration at that point did not identify specific cuts to get there, but we had our last board meeting where we kind of saw what the impacts of that would be. And I'd remind board members that when we ran the numbers that came out prior to the last board meeting, that and that's the projected property yield and CLA numbers to show the actual tax impacts of what those penalty phase would be. We were surprised to find that they were relatively minor, the impacts. And even with some exposure to penalties, each of our member towns is forecasted to have lower education taxes than FY26 from FY25 without cuts to school programs. I should say with fewer cuts to school programs than we had asked the administration to make. So I'd like to get into some of those details and skip some of these items. Just a reminder, some of these kind of major budget drivers. I think the most significant one, well, not most significant, but one of the big ones is our ADM, that enrollment number. It's highly formulaic. If you look in the board pack, you can see that we've got just south of 1,000 actual students enrolled in our district, but this kind of manufactured weighted number, we have 1,520 last year, and then this year it slipped on us down to 1,466. That's significant because it determines your per pupil spend. You can make all kinds of cuts to your budget, but if your enrollment falls, then your per pupil spend is going to go up, and that's what sets the tax rate. Our health insurance is 12% increase. That's this number that really continues to increase faster than inflation and forces us to find more savings against programs. That number translated to about $300,000 on top of the $3 million that we were, looking to have to cut, and adding to the challenge. And then in the CLA, what we saw come out from the state is that those increases to the common level of appraisal, those continued to slow. They slowed this year as compared to previous years, which was really the major driver of the increases to the tax rate. So we don't need to talk about the yield bill. This is the budget priorities slide. The last time that I presented this, there were only the two numbers that you see at the top of the slide. That is the avoiding the excess spend threshold. At that time, it was 2.5 million. Now it's closer to 3 million if we wanted to make that our priority still. And then the health insurance increase that we just talked about. So a pretty tough road to hoe, right? 3.3 million in savings. But we've got our arms around, a big chunk of that. Just to recap, when we talked about some of those strategies that our principals and our superintendent were recommending, we saw a pretty massive outcry from our communities around the unified arts. And the number that was provided at the last board meeting was for reinstating all of our elementary unified arts. That's about 350,000. And then reinstating the Latin program at the high school. In addition to that, after we voted as a board last time to stay away from all unified arts, essentially to reinstate all those, we identified a half-time French teacher position that would need to be added to, added back into the budget in order to comply with that vote of the board. To address an item that came up in public comment this evening, this was something that Sherry emphasized as being of critical importance, and I think that's echoed in the public comment that we heard this evening. The 2 half-time math and science teachers at the high school would translate into an additional, $100,000 or so worth of costs to do that. The importance of that is obviously for, addressing the high uptake at the high school level in those courses, but also to enable our high school to offer AP classes that without those positions, we would have to make some pretty tough decisions about what we can offer. The significance of that is that many of our tuition students from choice towns come to Woodstock Union High School because we offer AP. Other schools in the area do not. And to cut those courses could result in a reduction to the amount of tuition students that we receive. So that's why this is, on the slide here for the board's consideration. Past this are three items that have come up in discussions, both of the board and among the administration, for potential cost savings, kind of recognizing that we're adding back a bunch of these costs and the impacts to taxpayers. The first is to raise tuition by $1,500. This has not been discussed by the board yet, but looking at kind of what's allowable for the school district and where we could set our tuition rates, kind of recognizing that our taxpayers have been hit hard by these, tax increases over the last several years, kind of to, share that burden with the choice towns who would send students to our district. That $1,500, this is a moving target. You've got just a general sense of how many tuition kids you're going to have enroll from year to year. But on the projected numbers, that would result in $120,000 that we would raise to what we call our local revenue, and would enable us to, reduce taxes in that amount once we enter the formula. Another idea that came up in recent board meetings was to reduce all of our sports and co-curricular budgets by 10%. This is something that it kind of is similar to what our superintendent, when she went to our principals and said, here's what you need to do for your programming across your buildings, right? You need to find this collectively $2.5 million worth of savings was the initial exercise. But similarly, we would essentially be saying to each of our programs that are, a sports program or a co-curricular, that we just need to tighten our belt to be able to help afford these cuts. That would contribute around $70,000, $71,000 in savings. And then another item that has been suggested. Again, we heard this echoed in public comment this evening, is the elimination of 3-year-old pre-K. I will say that this is not going to be part of the recommendation that I make this evening in terms of where I believe we should land as a budget. And the reason for that is that eliminating 3K does eliminate some of our ADM. And it also, in that, we would see our student numbers fall, which would be problematic to our formula, right? And then secondly, we know that getting kids into our programs, into our buildings, earlier in their careers can have a significant impact on the amount of services that they will need, later in their school careers. And so it's kind of penny wise, pound foolish to eliminate that. But it is a significant line item if that's something that the board were interested in.
Hey, Ben, can I ask you a couple questions before you move on?
Yeah, sure. Let's make this a discussion.
Yeah, and some of these questions are for the general public's information. What is the current tuition that we are charging?
Jim, do you have that number handy?
I do.
I just want to put the $1,500 addition into perspective.
The tuition that you approved in November for the high school would be $21,010. This would bring it to $22,510. And at the elementary level, you approved $18,180. This would make it $19,680. It would also increase pre-K by $1,500 to $12,120.
And just as a reminder, for the benefit of those who may be in attendance this evening, those tuition dollars are public dollars. Those are tax dollars paid by the towns who send students to our schools. They're not, it's not private tuition. That doesn't come out of, a family's budget.
Received.
Heather?
Thank you for, oh, hold on a second. I have one more question. Yeah, that was going to be my next question, was explaining where those dollars come from. With regards to cutting 3-year-old pre-K, do you have, you had mentioned, and this was on my mind anyway, do you have a sense of how that would affect our actual student count and how that would affect the ADM?
I guess I don't off the top of my head. I guess we could scroll back to, in the board book, the number of 3-year-old pre-K students. I guess I would say that we already prioritize, or our policies or our procedures are meant to prioritize 4-year-olds over 3-year-olds, right? So there's already a degree of that. But I don't know, does Jim or others have any kind of back of the envelope sense of how that would impact our ADM?
So Ben, real quickly, this year we have 48 3-year-old pre-K members, according to the December 20th report from RAF.
Okay.
We get 41% of them counted. So about 22 of those count. And then because it's a 2-year average, we get about 11 full FTE counts from them each year that they're here until they come into kindergarten, where they become a full count.
Okay.
Brilliant.
Yeah, I'd have to plug that in to see what that would do to the actual tax rate.
That's okay. I just want to give everybody kind of a heads up as to how it's going to affect. And again, we receive money from the state based on our student count in ADM. So yeah, just want to make sure that information is out there. Thank you.
Right.
Can I follow up to ask how the 306 number was produced? Was it the idea of eliminating a couple classrooms?
Yes, 2 classrooms.
Yeah, both of those at West, isn't that correct, Tim?
2 classrooms and paras at West, yes.
Okay.
And Elliot?
Yeah, hi, Ben. I just wanted, if you could go back to one of the first slides where you mentioned that even with the penalty phase, the taxes, all but one of the towns, which I assume is Plymouth, we're gonna go down. Is that the tax rate or the actual tax bill that they will receive? Because
tax rate, that's tax rate. Yeah, that gets back to the kind of qualifier that for towns who have done recent reappraisals, your tax rate is going to be applied to a new value of a new home value. And for the, towns who've done those reappraisals, I think it's 4 of our towns, and with Killington being the 5th plan for this year, the increases to property value are far more meaningful than the decreases to tax rates. So the amounts, typically, right, you could have somebody who's an exceptional case, but in general, home values have gone up significantly in our school district. And as a result, even if you've got a decrease to the tax rate, that increase to home value will cause an increased amount of taxes that a homeowner would need to pay. Heather?
Heather, you're muted.
Okay, thank you. Sorry about that delay. My question was very much connected to Anna's question. For the preschool ADM, what's the decimal? What's the fraction that a preschool student is counted at?
Jim, did you say 0.4, 0.41?
It's 0.4, I think it's 0.43 or 0.46. I can look it up.
0.46 sounds right.
Compensated for 10 hours, right? Great.
No.
Go ahead, Jim.
We get paid as part of our ADM at 0.46 of a full FTE.
Thank you. That was exactly what I was looking for. Thank you.
Other questions at this time, or should I continue? Sounds like I am good to go.
I guess just to, ask something on around that same idea of eliminating the 2 classrooms / 3-year-old pre-K. Would it be possible to fill out all the, fill out classrooms in the district by age, such that, if pre-K classrooms that existed in Killington or Barnard or Reading were not full, they could accept, 4-year-olds obviously, but any 3-year-olds up to the point of capacity. The 4-year-olds that want to be a part of the program.
Corinne, are you saying that we would eliminate 3-year-old pre-K in all of our schools, but then make an exception in order to keep those classrooms in Barnard and Reading viable?
Yeah, exactly. An exception is one way of putting it, but the idea is that, obviously it's better in terms of ADM to have full pre-K classrooms. And if we decided I guess it would be an exception. But yes, it would be to allow younger students, if there were room in any of the classrooms that we were budgeting for. And then you get a few extra ADM. They wouldn't make that much difference, obviously, but.
I can speak to that. And I maybe would ask Jim and Sherry to join me here. Following the last board meeting, there was some questioning by board members of, what is the basis for the equity among our elementary school buildings and the requirement that offerings be the same. And Jim looked into our articles of agreement following Act 46, and there are numerous references throughout to equity of offerings at each of the elementary schools. So I think it would be, problematic to allow 3-year-old pre-K in some buildings and not all buildings. I guess we could do that for discussion, but
to probably work. I think it's probably not worth taking the time to work through that now, but I would contend that the idea of equitable offerings is opaque. We're not offering the same thing campus to campus. So we've got combined classrooms in some schools and not in others, including pre-K.
On this kind of Excel spreadsheet, shows the tax rates in different scenarios, starting with the FY25, our current year. This is where everybody just really got crushed. Even the three towns who did, reappraisals, Reading, Bridgewater, and Barnard, to Elliot's point earlier, anybody in Bridgewater can tell you that their tax bill went up, even though their tax rate went down significantly, right? But the towns that didn't do reappraisals, Killington, Plymouth, Woodstock, you're talking, 30% tax increases, 36%, right? That's kind of what had us all shell-shocked when the legislature announced, the return of the excess spend threshold. So anyway, looking at these different, scenarios, I guess the one I want to zero in on, just kind of cut to the chase, I'm recommending this evening, is the sixth scenario. What it would entail would be kind of everything you saw on that slide of the priorities, without reducing pre-K any further, right? So what that entails is, that original cost savings proposal, honor the board decision at the last meeting to add back all UA, add back the 2 positions for the high school math and science, those 2 half-time positions, then do the 10% reduction to the sports and co-curricular budgets, and then add that $1,500 to the tuition rate. What that all projects to, as you can see in this scenario, per that, slide kind of early in my presentation, is a reduction to every town's tax rates in FY26, some, more than others, with the exception of Plymouth. Plymouth is still struggling with its CLA. And they're lagging a little bit behind other member towns. But, I guess the takeaway for voters in 6 of our 7 member towns would be your taxes are going down from last year, right? So at least the tax rate is what that would. And then I guess if you went back to, a scenario where we're looking to avoid excess spending, right? And that's what this first scenario is staying out of the penalty phase. I know there were a number of board members who expressed interest in that. That would entail, putting back none of, UA or those science and math positions, and making an additional about $500,000 worth of cuts, which would be devastating to school programs. That would still see Plymouth with a 6% increase to their taxes versus a 10% increase, right? So not really, saving them from the pain that the CLA is causing. And then other towns seeing about, a 3 or 4% further reduction to their break in their taxes. That's really the spread of outcomes that I think is before the board this evening. So I guess with that information, I guess the last thing would be with the pre-K, since there seemed to be interest in that, what kind of savings would cutting that additional the 2 classrooms from West, what would that and that would obviously cause some problems with the articles of agreement. But if we could, find a way to do that, you're looking at a little more than 1% further reduction in Woodstock, about same thing across the board. That only moves the needle about, 1.2%. to cut the pre-K classrooms. So that's the reason why I'm recommending this scenario. I think it addresses a lot of the feedback that we've gotten as a board from our constituents, while still doing well by the taxpayer in a time where we've got some room. Discussion?
Yeah, question. So in scenario 6, the one you're recommending, how much of the 3.3 million that we were attempting to reduce out of the budget would be achieved?
Yeah, let's take a look there. So 6 is in this column. Sorry, I'm going into the numbers behind the. So yeah, about 4, because we'd be looking at around 900 in penalty phase exposure there.
So we will have cut out 2.5 million?
Right. So like if you want to spend that 900,000, it costs you 1.8 million is the idea.
Thanks.
So your budget for tax rate calculation purposes from the state, they just count that portion of it twice.
Receive, thanks.
Yeah.
Elliot?
Yeah, so what is the estimated ramifications on the sports and co-curriculars by cutting by 10%? Any idea?
Yeah, I had a discussion with Ramsey, our football coach, on that. I don't know if he appreciates me repeating that. Yeah, he said most of the football program's budget, for instance, and I think it's Jimmy, keep me honest here, but maybe it's 700,000 or something like that.
That's all sports.
Sorry, that's everything, right? That's everything. But he said it's mostly equipment refurbishment, right? Like you got to send in the helmets so that they're safe, shoulder pads, all that sort of thing, so that they're in good condition. But when I asked him, I said, could you make it work for a year? He said, yeah, we'll do whatever it takes to help the district and the taxpayer. Right.
Yeah, I'd like to ask if we could maybe increase the tuition by maybe $1,000 per student instead of $1,500. Just throw that in there from Pittsfield.
Thanks, Ray. Ryan, did you have a question?
Yeah. What is the starting next year 905,000 or 1.8 in the hole do for our budget next year, right? Because if we agree to vote any of this through, it's going to put us at a deficit that we have to account for and make up for next year. So what's this going to do to our budget next year if we're voting in to start at a negative amount regardless of what it is?
Well, we wouldn't be running at a deficit, right? There's two kind of separate concepts there. One is if you overspend your budget, right, the amount of money that the taxpayers approve, then you've got a deficit that you've got to make up for in the next year. That's not this scenario. This is going to your taxpayer and saying, we want to spend this amount of money, and this is what it's going to do to your tax rate. Some of that is kind of more expensive spending than other portions of our budget, but here's your tax rate, right? It won't be a hole that we'll need to work out from. It's just that we're essentially asking our taxpayers to pay double for some of the programs that we think are important to our students.
Thank you, Laura.
I think the most important thing that we need to do is pass a budget or put forth a budget that we think will be voted yes on. We've talked about how cutting AP classes might reduce tuition students coming here. I think if we fail to pass a budget as our towns, we're also going to be sending a signal to potential tuition students of, I don't know if I want to send my kid to this school district because they can't pass a budget. What's it going to look like in the next 4 years? We didn't send out any kind of survey as a board. I did try to survey Bridgewater residents using Facebook and the Front Porch Forum and a local church listserv, and I didn't get like a ton of responses, but half of the people that I surveyed, giving them the previous 4 options of make additional cuts to stay under the threshold, keep with the cuts that we'd already discussed, add back 450 for the UA, and don't make any cuts at all. And half of the people wanted maximum cuts, stay out of threshold, keep our taxes down. And the second largest group was the opposite end of things of don't make any cuts at all, we'll pay for it, it'll be great. And then, there were some people in the middle there. So I realized that Bridgewater is a tiny town, and maybe it's like, well, okay, even if half of Bridgewater people vote no, we have enough people in all the other towns that'll vote yes. That's something that we have to think about, because we can put together something that we think is nice and is good for students, but if it gets voted down, then it didn't matter that we made the nicest budget. We still don't have a budget.
Bob?
Yeah, I would respectfully disagree with the philosophy that our responsibility as board members is to promote a budget that we're sure that will pass. I think our responsibility is to put forth a budget that's the best for the children of our community. We've got a lot of support, apparently, so far for not cutting these important programs. The worst thing that can happen is that we go to town meeting day and the budget gets voted down. If it does, we'll come back here in April and we'll start again, pick it up from there.
John?
So I just wanted to clarify, I think I clarified Ryan's question for Ben, which was, if we don't make the cuts this year, there's that money's still in the budget for the following year. So what he's asking is, what is that? How does that impact continue to snowball?
I can take that. I mean, so if you just roll forward this year's budget to next and you assume some inflation and you assume that healthcare is going to go up a ridiculous amount like it does every year, and then you assume that the state's going to put out numbers that are going to try to restrict district spending, then yes, we'll be in excess spending again next year, and a little bit worse next year than we would have been if we weren't in excess spending this year. But we actually just don't know until we get there next year. And and the state runs all the numbers again. By this time next year, they could have changed the education finance system. If they say they might do what they might do, but we just don't know.
Corinne?
Yeah, I mean, to that point, I feel like it is important. I mean, I sort of felt like at the last meeting, the administration and the principals and everybody, they worked their asses off to get us to a draft budget that didn't go over the excess spending threshold and came forward with, I thought, was like a very fair, obviously well thought out proposal. And in my mind, what we were saying last meeting was we may not be willing to cut that much from our programming, and we think that our communities will support the idea of going over the threshold to be able to provide, enough adequate education for the kids in our communities. And so this is sort of like the second draft and saying, okay, and I do think, like I said last time, it's a bit of a message to Montpelier too, that you can't keep cutting and cutting and cutting. And the pain that, we feel in the towns, and especially in Plymouth, for example, is going to be there regardless of whether we make this adjustment or not. It's a bigger problem that is going to be addressed, legislatively one way or another, and maybe in ways that hurt a lot more. But I agree that it's kind of up to us to say, this is what we think is the best thing we can put forward, and to encourage our towns and our, everybody to support it. I mean, we've historically had amazing support for our budgets year after year. So yeah.
Other discussion?
Yes, Adam.
Yep. Hi, Ben. So I think if we take into consideration the budget we passed last year and the tax implications from that, at the same time that we put forth a bond that would have had significant tax implications, right? That handedly, that was voted down. So now we're turning around this next year and putting forward a budget with other end of tax implications for the majority of the towns. If we're playing that kind of gambling game, I think the chances of that budget passing is probably a lot greater than us putting forth a bond again, like we did last year. Again, it's what's within our control. To your point, Corinne, right? The state has put this in our laps, and this is what's within our control. It feels responsible and based on the limited parameters that we have.
Adam, Carrie's got her hand up.
You're muted, Carrie. Trying to find out.
Yes, it's a little tricky on my phone here in Argentina. However, I would say that Ben and I have discussed this at length numerous times, and our feeling, I think, to characterize what Ben and I have talked about, is that if the budget doesn't pass in March with what we want and think is necessary for our budget, then we will run another budget in April, and we'll have to do what we have to do. But because there are so many unknowns right now with the legislature and what's going to come forward, and even the numbers that are provided regularly to us, I personally, at this point in our thinking on this, I feel we should put in what we feel is necessary and what our community has been asking us to do, as well as Sherry and the principals, along with restoring some of the positions they cut. And so that is what I personally think is the best thing to do.
Yeah, Brian.
How long would Plymouth be catching the short end of the stick on this deal as far as being the only town with an increase to their tax rate? When they get reappraised as a town, will then it be a similar drop to the rest of the community towns?
That's correct. I'll slide up here, Ryan, so you can see. And Pomfret was the first in our in the district, not last year, but the year before. They did a reappraisal, and then the increases to their tax rate last year were less than the other towns, right? So they kind of got a 2-year benefit or so from that reappraisal. But you can see that even last year, on a percentage basis, the towns that did a reappraisal, Reading, Bridgewater, and Barnard, saw significant decreases to the tax rate, right? But to my comment to Elliot earlier, the individual homeowner, they're watching their home value go from, say, $285,000 to, $600,000, decreases of a quarter it aren't going to be as meaningful as that property value doubling, right? To the amount of money that they have to pay. But that's not a function of what we do as a school district. That just means that people are taxing the fair market value of their homes, and those fair market values are increasing.
Thank you.
Yeah. Other discussion? Carrie, I think I heard you say that.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead, John.
Yeah. I'll just say I support the option number 6 that you've recommended. I know our board didn't really get a chance to fully discuss adding back the science and math positions in the last meeting. But I truly think that we want to be able to offer those AP classes in math and science. I feel very good about adding back the UA. Just to personalize it a little bit, my daughter's a senior and we've applied now to 14 colleges so far. We've got a few more coming. And, I'm reading, what do you need to do to get into these schools that are selective? You need to have as rigorous of a course selection as possible. You need to have languages for 4 years. And so if we don't fund those math and science positions, if we did cut the languages like French and Latin and some of the Spanish, then my son will not have the same opportunity that my daughter just did. And so I really feel good about our messaging. We were asked to try to find 3.3 million to take out of our budget. We found, if I get the numbers right, 2.4. We couldn't find any more without significantly deteriorating the quality of education, which then would have started, kicked off a vicious, downward spiral of cannibalism where we actually get fewer students and the numbers just get worse. So I'm behind the idea of having some of our budget in penalty phase. And I think we have a good message for the voters.
Thanks, Matt. A couple folks with their hands raised. I can't see who.
This is Anna. Would you like a motion to accept scenario number 6 on this budget?
Yes, is that you making it?
Yeah, I'll make the motion that we, as a board, it sounds like there's a couple of folks around the board that are in support. Our community, as far as parents, as was just spoken to, and our teachers and our students have come out and really would like this. And I think it's a really nice balance, although we're going to go into penalty phase, a really nice balance of providing our students what they need and also being cognizant of taxpayer dollars.
Thank you, Anna. Is there a second?
A second.
Okay, further discussion?
Ben, can you scroll down to see scenario 7 a little further, please?
Sure. That's cutting 3-year-old pre-K in addition to, kind of on top of scenario 6.
I'd also like to give out lots of gratitude and high fives to Ben and Carrie and administration for doing so much with this. Thank you all so much.
Thanks, Anna. Heather?
Thank you. If we do move forward with needing to make more cuts, I would like to propose we change the language from dropping 3-year-old pre-K to how many classrooms we propose to cut. Because the state allows for up to 20 pre-K students in a classroom as long as there's 1 adult for every 10. And closing a classroom does not need to mean excluding all 3-year-olds. So I want to throw my voice behind Corinne's on that. It's about the language we use, how many classrooms we close.
Thanks, Heather.
Thank you.
Other discussion? Okay, all in favor of the motion on the floor to set the FY26 budget in accordance with scenario 6 as shown, please say aye.
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 All opposed?
Aye.
Is that Josh?
Yes.
Is anyone else? Is there anyone else opposed?
Yeah, I'm going to say nay on that.
You're a nay, Heather?
Yes.
Okay, so that's I guess I'm asking, because I'm remote, I'm asking the nays to identify themselves. It didn't sound like there were as many nays as there were ayes. Raina, since this is being conducted with a Zoom option here, are we required to do a roll call at this point?
Yes, you are.
Okay. John, as the in-room moderator, since I can't see who's in the room, could I delegate this roll call to you?
Sure.
John, please have them state their name so that people on Zoom knows who's voting.
Yes, so we'll go around the room. We'll start with Bob, and if you can state your name and how you vote.
Okay, Bob Crane, Pomfret, aye.
Lydia Locke, Pomfret, aye.
Laura Bowers, Bridgewater, aye.
Adam Hamley, Reading, aye.
Ryan Townsend, Bridgewater, aye.
Josh Linton, Plymouth, nay.
Elliot Rubin, Plymouth, aye.
John Williams, Woodstock, aye.
Corinne Park, Barnard, aye.
Matt Stout, Woodstock, aye.
Heather Lawler, Barnard, nay.
Carrie Bristow, aye.
Anna Sessa, Reading, aye.
Sam DiNatale, aye.
Katie Reed, Killington, nay.
Ann Carl, Killington, aye.
Can we hear from Ray Rice, please?
Raina, do I vote on this?
Yes, you do. You're part of the district.
Oh, thank you. Aye.
And I am so sorry. I have that backwards. You are not part of the district.
Yeah, I didn't think I voted on this one.
Easy come, easy go.
How about Ernie?
Is it
Ernie, is Ernie still here? And Ben.
And Ben.
I'm not seeing Ernie. Ernie, you there?
I see Ernie, but
He's on mute.
he's not,
Went to the bathroom.
Yeah. Great. Well, I'll go. Ben Ford, Woodstock, aye. And I guess we can put Ernie down as an abstain if he's stuck in the bathroom. Raina, what's our total there?
6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 yeses.
13 to 3 to 1, is that correct?
1, 2, 3 no's.
Okay, I'm making Ernie an abstain. The ayes have it, and the motion carries. This will be the budget for FY26, and I thank the board members for their careful consideration of the budget during this difficult budgeting season.
Point of order, Raina, do we need to make a motion with the official numbers and language? For the record, that would be helpful.
Yeah, we can do that. Okay, let me get back to the agenda. I think that we actually have the warning as the next item. Actually, we had said after the budget workshop that we were going to set the tuition rate with that increase of $1,500. At least that was that's what we would need to do to achieve the.
Didn't we just cover that in that vote? Because that was included in the.
I think Jim and I spoke about this before the meeting. I believe we are required to set the tuition separately. We've done that. Even though we have a budget here that assumes a higher tuition, we have to take action, which is the reason why I amended the agenda at the start.
Okay.
I'd like to make a motion.
I think, okay, I mean, do you want
a motion?
Yeah, a motion would be great, but I think we need to have the actual amounts of the tuition that that will be set. If you have those, great. If not, maybe we could have Jim read them off.
We're setting the tuition.
Sure. The high school tuition would be $22,510. The elementary would be $19,680. And pre-K would be $12,120.
Is there a motion for those to set FY26 tuition rates at those amounts?
So moved.
Thank you, Heather. Is there a second?
Seconded.
Thank you, Carrie. All in favor of the motion to set those tuition rates for FY26, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say nay. Opposed, please say nay. Hearing no opposition, the ayes have it and the motion carries. Okay, next item on our agenda this evening is to approve the warnings for the budget. And I guess I can share my screen again. We will need to insert some numbers into the template warnings. And I may need some help, Raina. Let's see, here is the warning from last year. And the language that we use to establish the warning is here. Keep me honest here, Raina.
So just to clarify, this is the warning for this coming February, not last year.
Oh, that's right, FY25. Thank you.
Informational hearing. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, great. So the expenditure amount here would be, if I can flip between our scenarios in FY26, would be this figure, 30,773,78. And going back to our next blank to be filled in, this is enrollment number, the LTW per pupil education spending would be, that's on row 44. No, that's the tax rate, sorry. Per pupil spend raw, sorry. Be this one, 17,229.81. And in anticipation of this, I actually calculated the percentage which we need, which is which percent higher than per pupil education spending for the current year. That percentage would be 1.38% higher. Is there a motion to approve the warning with those figures inserted in the blanks?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Yes, right.
Thank you, Ryan. All in favor of the motion to approve the warning with those amounts inserted, please say aye.
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 All opposed, please say nay. Hearing none, the motion passes. Thank you.
Please see me after for signatures. Thank you.
Thank you, Rana. Okay, going back to our agenda. Oh, do we need further warnings here?
There's the informational hearing. Do we need the?
I'm just looking at the agenda.
I thought I heard was you approved both warnings in one motion. That's what I thought I just heard.
Yeah, that's right. Do you need anything further from us, Raina?
I do not. The same numbers apply to both blanks.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Yep. Okay. Wonderful. All right. We are into committee updates.
Before we move on, sorry, Ben, before we move on, Raina, for those of us who are not in person, are you required to have our signature? And if so, where and when can we, or how long do we have to head up to the office to sign?
I would appreciate as many signatures as possible. And I will work with you. Just email me. I'll work with you to meet with you.
Receive. Thank you.
Okay, let's talk committee updates. The first is the Finance Committee. Finance has taken enough air out of the room tonight. We will not have a further update, but really thank you to the committee, to the superintendent, to our principals, Jim, Raf, Joe, everybody who worked so hard on the budget this year. It was a really tough task and I really appreciate the work.
Kudos to all of you.
Policy, Elliot.
Yep, so tonight, we're basically second reading of the policy on student activities, clubs, and athletic policy. Basically, this codifies, how we deal with sports, co-curriculars, how we get the clubs to be, to move to sponsored sports, et cetera. We offered this last time, and to Sam's point, we certainly welcome any feedback or discussion on this. Which you're welcome to do. I am going to make a motion that we, in light of that we, since we haven't gotten any feedback or anybody coming back, that we have a motion to have a third reading next time so we can have adequate time to discuss it. You're welcome to email me. You can come to our committee meeting, which is on the 27th. Certainly bring it up now as well, but I just want to make sure everybody gets a chance to take a look at it.
I'll second that.
All right, thank you. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor of a third reading for the student activities, clubs, and athletic policy, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. There'll be a third reading. Anything else, Elliot?
No, that's it.
Great. Matt, buildings and grounds?
We did not meet since the December 16th full board meeting, so no updates.
Thank you. Negotiations, hiring, and retention.
No updates on that. We've not met since the last meeting.
Great. And any working groups have any updates? Hearing none, we will move along. We need to approve the minutes of both our December 2nd and December 16 meetings. Is there a motion? I'll do those as a batch. Those don't tend to draw much discussion. Can I have a motion to approve both sets of minutes?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor of approving the minutes of the December 2nd, December 16, 2024 board meetings, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the ayes have it. Motion passes. Those minutes are approved. Now we have an opportunity for a second public comment. Would anyone in the room or on Zoom like to speak? Mark.
Hi, Ben. Thank you. I had written a letter after the last meeting to Scott Beck. I'm assuming some of you know who Scott Beck is. He's Vermont Senator-elect from the St. Johnsbury area. He's also the Senate Republican leader. And I wrote him, I said, I haven't heard of anyone advocating for modification or repeal of the excess spending threshold in fiscal year 26, but it is still early. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm writing the wrong thing. So what I wrote to him is the fiscal year 25 long-term average daily admission per pupil for the Mountain View Supervisory Union was the 5th largest in the state, and you can correct me if I'm wrong on that. As a result, the MVSU proposed a fiscal year 26 budget with almost 2.5 million in cuts so that the district could not find itself exceeding the excess spending threshold. At a December 16th special meeting of the school board, a motion was passed to put back $450,000 to cuts in the Unified Arts program, and there was limited talk of whether further cuts would be made or the board was willing to ask taxpayers to be taxed $2 for every dollar that we are over the excess spending. I said to him further, I assume that almost everything is on the table when it comes to educational fund reform. When the legislature convenes in early January 2025, do you have any idea about whether or not the excess spending penalty might be waived for fiscal year 26? Only in Vermont can you email a senator and get a response back in 30 minutes. And what he said to me was, I haven't heard of anyone advocating for a modification or repeal of the excess spending threshold in fiscal year 26, but it is still early. What I'm fairly certain is that there will be major change to the funding formula this year with a much stronger connection between a district spending decision and its local tax rate being a very likely outcome. He went on to further say that new formula should, in my opinion, eliminate the excess spending threshold in fiscal year 27. But I have to be honest, Scott went on to say, I think that the new connection will be so strong in the new formula that you wish you'd have the old formula back with an excess spending threshold. So I appreciate you putting this out to the voters. That's who'll decide. But I think we have to think across the whole state, and we have to think longer term, and we really won't know anything until probably May or June if there's a veto session this year. I just think people need to expand and understand we're only one district out of many, and that not everyone feels the way we do. So thank you for listening.
Thanks, Mark. Others for public comment?
Yes, yeah, in the room here.
Hi, my name is Leanne Tapley. I am a Woodstock resident. I have a 7th grader and a 9th grader, and I'm also the varsity field hockey coach. I would like some clarification on the budget cuts for the athletics, because according to your fiscal year 25 proposal, the athletic budget is $488,000, which would make a 20% cut. And I just would like to know where you're going to cut $71,000 out of that $488,000.
Hey, Lena, we don't typically respond in public comment, but it's also co-curriculars. So things like field trips or clubs that are outside of athletics. That's how we get to that $700-something thousand number and 10% of that.
So I can speak to field hockey, and it was said that the football budget is $70,000 and it's actually $7,000.
That's right. Thank you.
The field hockey budget is $1,100, and that gives me enough to get uniforms every 3 years for the number. And that $1,100 is middle school through varsity. So it's a very small budget. We do mostly fundraising. We bake sale at every game. We do crazy amounts of fundraising just to get a program every year. So to cut 71,000 out of, 80, was it close to 82% of students actually participate in sports. And I think, Matt, with your saying that Jane's getting into these schools for academics, I think it's just as much the well-rounded student that is participating in athletics also. So I know that the budget has passed with this $71,000 cut, but that is huge to our students. And I can tell you, my husband's already texting me saying our house is going on the market. So I think you will find that a lot of students come to Woodstock High School for athletics and not so much 4th grade Spanish.
Thanks, Ann. Brian?
Yes, Brian Mannion, Woodstock resident. I have a 1, 2, and 3-year-old, and this is my first time attending a meeting like this. And I just, first of all, I want to commend you guys on the job that you did. I was very impressed with how all of this worked out. Also, I think that scenario 6 is absolutely the best course forward. And I can say, just from personal experience, we moved here about a year ago. One of the major reasons why we decided to move to Woodstock was because of the quality of the education. So it's very encouraging to see that we have that support amongst the school board members. And just specifically to one of the comments that I heard about there being issues with people choosing to send their kids to the school based on whether or not we were able to get a budget approved on the first go through. I can tell you from personal experience that in all the research that we did on schools, never once did we come across anything that had anything to do with whether or not a budget had been approved on first pass the prior year. So I just want to say thank you very much. And, we're very happy to have our kids being part of the school system.
Thanks, Brian. Others in the room?
It does not appear so.
Okay, great. All right. We are now at an executive session. I don't believe we have an executive session this evening, do we?
That is correct. No executive session.
Okay. It's time for the happiest part of our board meetings, our reflection. Would any board members like to, hang on, let me rewind. Laura, did you miss your opportunity for public comment?
Yes, I'm sorry.
No worries.
Laura Silva, Woodstock. First of all, thank you all. This has obviously been so much work and it's really stressful for everybody involved. I'm sure for you guys and for faculty and staff and for parents and the community in general. So like, we all appreciate all of the effort you put in. I know that you don't respond to public comment, but I just wanted to know, just for the sake of clarification, because I was looking at the slides. The first slide that you showed, it said put back all of elementary UA, but then it wasn't specified in the case number 6 that you chose. So just for the sake of clarity, is it all of UA or just elementary UA?
I'm happy to answer that. It's all of UA. It's both elementary UA and then the Latin position at the high school and the half-time French teacher position.
Cool. Okay, thanks.
Sure.
Thank you so much.
Yep. Okay, last call, and I mean it, like last call for public comment. All right, hearing none. Any board members have any reflection this evening? Anna?
As usual, I have nothing but good things for the board members. Thank you all for continuing to give your time, and those, again, who had given exceptional time around the extra budget work. You all are why I keep coming back. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Anna. Anyone else? Okay. Thanks, everybody. Oh, go ahead, Ernie.
I just wanted to concur with Anna.
Ernie, we missed you for the budget vote. Did you get the bathroom door get locked? What happened? Just kidding.
I had a flight, a special meeting.
All right. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Looks like
Carrie,
Carrie has something.
That Argentinian mute button continues to plague you.
Yes, I'm off the coast of Argentina. Sorry, guys. I did not plan my dates very well for the next 3 months. But anyway, I just want to say thank you for everything. And thank you for the thoughtful time that was spent on considering these budget issues that we are facing. And I just do hope that we will proceed forward in the next several months with the legislature. And if we don't, then we have to do what we have to do. So thank you all.
Thanks, Carrie. Sam?
I just want to say, yeah, I mean, I concur with a lot of sentiments said tonight, but also bless you, Carrie, for zooming in while you're in Argentina, because I guarantee you if I was in Argentina, that would not be the case. Okay, like, love all of you, but if I was in Argentina, I would for sure not be in this meeting. So, wow, your dedication.
All right. That's got to be it, right?
Yep.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
How about a second?
Second.
All in favor of adjourning at 8:11 p.m., please say aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. We are adjourned. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chris.